Hello, my name is Al Graham, and you're with People Advocating Cannabis Education. P.A.C.E is about people who go around and promote cannabis and all of its benefits. Today we are at the Carpe Diem Cafe in Peterborough, and I'd like to introduce you to an advocate who can talk to us about prohibition and about the Canadian law on cannabis. I'd like to welcome Jacob Hunter to our interview tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. For a quick little intro on yourself, Jacob, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You know, maybe your hobbies, some education, what you do as far as work?
Yeah, so I'm here from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. I went to school for political science and economics. I work in politics primarily. Currently working for Vision Vancouver, which is the political party that is in charge of the city of Vancouver. My hobbies generally are, I do a lot of cycling when it's nice like this, spend a lot of time at the beach. Obviously, advocating for drug policy reform rates highly up there. And just generally kind of enjoying the active lifestyle out here.
The cycling, I've noticed your cycling. You tweet about that quite a bit, about bicycle paths and stuff like that on the roadways.
Yeah, I'm the vice chair of the Active Transportation Policy Council, which is a City of Vancouver committee that works on cycling and pedestrian walking policy in the city. It's something I've taken quite an interest in. I live and work proximate to downtown, so I commute via bike every day, and it's great. I had knee surgery, which is how I got into drug policy reform as well. And it's really been a huge help on my knee to be able to cycle instead of being cramped in a car or walking.
I'm sure it is a benefit. A lot of exercise, get the muscles moving and stuff, eh?
Yeah, it's a low impact. It's great. Really enjoy it.
Now, when it comes to cannabis and what you do is for activism, you have a website out there. It's called WhyProhibition.ca.
Yes, that's right. We founded WhyProhibition in 2008 under the banner of the Beyond Prohibition Foundation, which is an organization that Kirk Tusaw, Philippe Lucas, and I founded in that year, 2008.
Okay, so that tells me how it got started and stuff, and about the Beyond Prohibition. I noticed that the website. I was there, and okay, what exactly, Beyond Prohibition? Is that looking at how it could be when it was legal, if it became legal, and how it would be run through governments and stuff like that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so Beyond Prohibition's primary goal is advocating with government. And so basically we talk to politicians, we talk to people in the media a lot about kind of alternatives beyond the current state of affairs, which, as I'm sure your listeners and viewers know, is simply not working. And so what we try to do is really kind of get past a lot of the discussions about how bad everything is currently, and look at what we can do to make things better, how the system could work under a legal and regulated environment. And why prohibition is the reason we have a separate name. It's our activism portal. So it's really how we've got the carrot that is beyond prohibition, and the stick is kind of why prohibition, where we mobilize cannabis activists and use them in a way to kind of enhance policy goals, get people active. And so it's to give kind of politicians that double-edged sword, so to speak.
So why prohibition is the more one that's out there in the open that people would see, whereas the other one sort of works a little bit quieter behind the scenes, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. So what has why prohibition been involved in the past? Like you mentioned some like activism, but like some of the events and things like that you've been doing.
Yeah, so when I got started, actually, so in late 2007, I got started. I was working with Mark. He hired me pretty quickly at the university to fight the mandatory minimums bill. And one of the first things I said to him is, okay, let's get started planning some events. What do you have for an email list? And he said, well, we don't have anything. I just got Facebook pages. And I said, well, can we mass message people over those Facebook pages? He said, well, you can only do that up to 5,000 people, and all my pages have more than that. And so I quickly realized that what we were really lacking in the drug policy community was kind of this mobilization tool. And so I started to do a lot of research on what was available, what other groups were doing, especially what political parties were doing, because they have so much more money generally to spend than nonprofits. And what we came upon was a set of tools They actually started by the U.S. Democratic Party and later open source, and we used those in conjunction with custom development to build this WhyProhibition website to really enable not just a simple, email function, but really activate people and bring technology to bear to try to improve activism. So one of the things we did that I'm quite proud of is called the shout out module.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so what that is we thought, because I lived in the north, I remember those days when, you think you're the only person in your town that is advocating for marijuana policy reform or as a medical marijuana user. And so you thought, well, how many millions of people in Canada are in the same situation? And so what we did is we used a database, which now we have over 50,000 people, and we created this module wherein anybody in particular can go in, type in their postal code, their name, and their and the location of the event or the type of event they want to do, and it will actually send out that information to everyone within 40 kilometers of them without exposing those people they're sending it to privacy concerns. So it's kind of a blind way for the user to just shout out to everybody within 40 kilometers, hey, I have this protest or this event or this activity I want to do, let's connect. And it's been incredibly successful.
Now, how many, I guess it depends on your area, so is there many people on that list that would go to, I guess it just depends on where you are, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have, as I said, we have over 50,000 people, and that's actually accounting for spam. So had we not kind of booted people off that were either spammers or kind of dead accounts, we'd actually be up at the 75,000 range. But anyways, so about 50,000 people. And when you get to that point, it's a pretty equal distribution across the country. I mean, it's what you'd expect. Obviously, there's large populations in Vancouver and Toronto, lesser in Montreal than you think because we haven't had a lot of French language content. But generally speaking, the distribution of our membership is similar to the distribution of the population of Canada.
Oh, that's good. Very good. Now, when I was there, I noticed you guys have handbills. That's handout stuff, literature that other activists can download and give away at their own rallies and events like that?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I most common questions I got from people was, hey, I need to design information. Do you have anything you'd send me? And so what we did is looked at what was the cheapest way for people to be able to hand out information. And it's with these quarter-page handouts. And they end up costing about half a cent per when they're double-sided black and white. And so we designed a series of them. We sometimes take some old ones down, put new ones up, and just generally provide those we provide those for free to everybody to use to print out. And they're all formatted to either be printed on a home printer and cut by hand, or to send to a print shop and have them cut for you.
That would come in very handy because there are a lot of people out there that do look for that kind of information. I also noticed you can contact your MP, so you got all the MPs across the country all listed into your database, and you just put your postal code in, and you can automatically send a letter to your MP as well.
That's correct, and we also have for each of the 50,000 people we actually have assigned an MP to them. So when we write an email to anyone across the country, we can include a variable in that email that will say who their MP is, include phone numbers and email addresses. It hasn't been since the Conservative majority. We've kind of have pulled back on a lot of our federal lobbying just because it's kind of shouting in the wind. But it's definitely a useful tool for people to be able to engage meaningfully with their federal representatives.
Petition building for people who want to get involved in doing petitions. I noticed that was there as well for people who want to do that.
Yeah, petitions, events, email campaigns. So you could start up an email campaign. You can invite everyone on your Facebook, your Twitter, or your Gmail to it. We've really tried to make activism as easy as possible by using as many advanced technologies that are available to us.
Well, I can tell you've got a lot of stuff there. I also noticed you got a few other tabs. You got one on Mark Emery that keeps everybody up to date to what's going on with Mark. And actually, would you like to tell everybody what an update with Mark? Is there any update that we could share with people?
Well, I should say. I mean, I haven't spoken to Mark in quite some time. I don't work for Cannabis Culture anymore.
Correct.
So I mean, I know generally where Mark is, but I don't have any any inside info on that. I actually haven't been down to cannabis culture in a couple months at this point. I'm just I work full time on the other side of downtown, anyways. So
you're right.
Very often.
And you guys supply news from all around the world, news topics and stuff are all posted there as well.
Yeah, we try to make sure. I mean, try to give people kind of the positive news where people are making a difference in countries. I mean, it's really depressing when you go on Google News and just search for cannabis or marijuana. A lot of the articles are about busts, and so we really try to filter through that and just look at again, what comes after prohibition.
There was one thing that I found interesting on it was you've got a page on psychedelics.
Yeah, we actually advocate for the end of prohibition of all drugs simply because prohibition isn't working for anything. We actually have a page on psychedelics, on harder drugs, on sex work reform. We try to kind of broaden the scope for all activists. It actually those were not initially part of the website, but after we had launched and became successful, a sex work reform group approached us, and then a psychedelics group approached us and said, "Look,
really?
We leverage your technology," and I said, "Absolutely." And so we've given away our technological base to over 10 groups. I'd have to actually go back and look, and we've also allowed them to use our platform itself, and it's been quite helpful, especially on the sex work reform issues. Although it's been a little controversial for some in the cannabis community.
Well, I guess like the title is Why Prohibition. It doesn't say why cannabis prohibition.
Exactly.
And prohibition of psychedelics, prohibition of prostitution, it's all still prohibition.
Yeah, and I think it's important, obviously, to note. I mean, we're talking about cannabis prohibition and the end of cannabis prohibition. It's going to look very different than ending other prohibitions. Right. When you look at things like sex work reform, for instance, what that really is about is lessening the harm to street-level sex workers. It's not as if we would have prostitution for sale everywhere, that we would have marijuana for sale or psychedelics or cocaine or anything like that. I mean, it really is about adapting regulatory systems to the issue at hand rather than just using criminal prohibition as kind of a blanket tool, which, not to beat the dead horse, but obviously simply isn't working.